Today I want to talk about explaining testing with exercises. I don't know, can everyone hear me?
Just fine.
Okay. I want to talk, can you see on the screen explaining testing with exercises? We got the screen sharing working?
Yep.
Fantastic. So there seems to be two extremes when it comes to testing. One is the assumption that anybody can do it. It's really pretty easy, and why do you keep screwing it up? If we would just write everything down, and then you could just follow the list, the checklist, and you'd be fine. You keep screwing it up. And the other assumption is it's something that you're born with, that you have this kind of curiosity and this inbound desire. It's this magical black art that only the deep wizards have. The guys that fly around on the consultants that fly around on planes, go into these expensive assignments and get paid all the money, and that normal people don't have it. And the truth is in the middle. I think that testing is a skill that can be demonstrated, that can be taught, and you can do better or worse at it. So what we're going to do today is do some exercises to teach that. So let's dig into that. Right, so you're going to get an exercise to take home to demonstrate the complexity of skilled testing. So you'll be able to give it to your team, and they'll be able to run it, and people will be able to do better or worse based on their actual skill. And they'll go, huh, weird. It's like testing is something you could be good at, that we could appreciate, that we could maybe compensate more, or you could teach. And of course, you'll be able to find bugs. And if you can find the bugs, then you can build your reputation among the Lansing group as someone who knows what they're doing. And this is the second time I'm doing this over Zoom. So we will be figuring out what works to not just have me read some slides, but to actually do collaborative exercises together. I would suggest, I've done this before once, so we'll talk about protocol, but the chat feature of Zoom can be really helpful. And hopefully maybe we can have Jess monitoring those chats and bubbling up questions that are either very good, very, because I'll be focusing on the talk, bubbling up the questions that are good or that keep reoccurring, frequently stuff. Between the two of us, I think we'll figure it out. So I developed this exercise at Exelon to use primarily for interviews, for hiring, to see if people could actually handle a real situation. The first time we did this was at a test retreat in Vancouver, I think, Vancouver, British Columbia. And about half of the people had a PTSD-like reaction. They got very uncomfortable. So we're going to simulate a real project, which means there's going to be uncertainty, ambiguity, time pressure, maybe a difficult boss or two. So, and actually, I would argue that under those conditions, testers can add value immediately by finding defects and problems. Because under those conditions, there's going to be a lot of defects and problems because people aren't talking to each other, and they're remarkably common in the software world. If you've worked in a hostile work environment before, or you're a naive person who never has, this simulation can make you very uncomfortable. So if you have a history of this kind of thing, if you're dealing with complex PTSD, and I'm not kidding, it happens. If you've been in a hostile workplace, maybe this isn't the simulation for you. So I'm going to pause here for about a minute and let people leave the chat, leave the Zoom if they think there are better uses for their time. And I'm not offended. It's fine. I did this with this exact morning for about 60 people at the conference for the Associations for Software Testing a few years ago, and with the same pace and cadence of explanation. And afterward, I want to say 4 people came up to me and said they were really uncomfortable. And I brought this slide up, and they said, oh, yeah. So even knowing that, it still can have a triggering effect. So if you choose to go forward, you can either, and I'm making you uncomfortable, you can make the timeout signal over Zoom, or you can put it in the chat, and I will pause and take a break. As we'll talk about later, I actually take on various forms of players in the simulation, various roles. And I can always zoom back to being Matt, your friend and helpful coach, which It's fine. I'm more like a normal person when I'm in that role. Speaking of which, let's talk about the roles. So I'm going to give you some software to test. Here's a web page. I want you to test it. And I can be several roles. First, and Matt, I could be coach, where I'm giving you hints and encouraging you and trying to push you in the right direction without giving you the answer. Or I can be the judge to say what you've done is outside the rules of the simulation. And you can say, I'd like to talk to Matt now, that's the coach, and we'll have a conversation much more like this one. Finally, I could be the forces of nature. So for example, you might say, I'm gonna get a high-heeled shoe, I'm gonna wedge it over the D key, I'm gonna go to lunch, come back and hit enter, flooding the field with too much data. And there are very complex versions of this. So we're not testing the browsers, so you don't need to test Control Tab to see if it creates too many tabs and blows up. But you could say that, and I could say, as the forces of nature, okay, this is what it did. So we don't have to take all the time to actually do the work if I can tell you the results. Likewise, I might say, that bug is fixed, you have a new build, you can pretend that bug is not there anymore, can we ship it now? And that ship it now would probably be the voice of the product owner. But that pretend that it's fixed, that would be the forces of nature. So there are 3 roles in the simulation. So the simulation is, I think I can more detail later, but you're a new hire. It's day 1, and the vice president of IT impresses upon you the importance of the project, the resources that are available, the deadlines, that kind of thing. There's also a non-technical product owner. The product owner is the person who decides what the software should be. They describe more at the sort of English specification level. The actual programmer who wrote this software is out sick. They're not available, but there's a junior dev, and if you correctly or you describe the bug, the junior dev can go fix it. You might have to be a little more precise with your description of that bug because they're junior. So you walk around, you shake hands, you have some donuts, and we're about ready to get started. So what is the software, you ask? The software is designed to tell you if a word or whatever you type in is a palindrome or not. So a palindrome is the same words backwards and forwards. Bob is a palindrome, Robert is not. The software tells you if what you enter is a palindrome. So this is super easy, right? This is a field and a submit button, and then it tells you whether or not it's a palindrome. 1 input, 1 transformation, one output. Simplest kind of software. I don't think anyone here, I can't quite tell who's on the call, but if you've done this before, there's no need to show off and do the advanced things. Just sit back and let the new people play. Yep. So before we get started, I went through that pretty quick. I think you'll learn through the simulation. I'm just going to give you a web page and maybe some initial parameters. Questions so far? I can't see the chat, so if they come up in the chat, maybe chat can tell me.
Mark had said that he had done this at the KWSQA meetup recently, so.
Yep, that's the first time I did this on the web. I'm interested in Mark's feedback afterward, maybe. Yeah, so the VP of IP introduces you to the team and says, what we want to do is ship this software to the customer by 5 p.m. in this business day. And there's the website, xndev.com/palindrome. So if everyone can bring that up in a browser, and that should work on your tablet, your laptop, or your phone. So if you only have your laptop right now, the easiest thing to do is to medium size this presentation and then just bring up a browser and go to the website. And I can take questions. I might be able to even share it. Let's see if I can share it. Yeah, let's do that. So if I go to xanddev.com/palindrome,
Links in the chat.
can everybody see that?
I was shaking my head. I doubt if you could hear that.
So if I type in Bob and click submit, it'll say, yes, Bob reversed is Bob. There you go. Type in something else, it should say, no, Robert reversed is Trobert, whatever. Pretty simple stuff. So go ahead, do your testing thing, play with it. Let me know any bugs you find, report any defects you find, and then we'll fix them. And then after a little bit, we can decide if this thing should go out on the web.
I've got one bug.
What's that?
I typed in Nancy and submitted it. It said, no, Nancy is reserved. Nancy reserved is YCNAN. It should be reversed.
Good, good, good. The only thing I'm sharing right now is the presentation, right? I got some a URL I need to research. But you can say that's fixed, Jess. It's good.
When you expand your menu via the hamburger icon, training's hyperlinked at the top level, but about is not. You know, actually,
Don't worry about the global nav. Don't worry about the global nav. We're just testing the testing the body. Although, James, let me know about that later because that's actually my website.
Okay. So.
And the global nav is inconsistent, and that's just it is. The menus are not consistent, and I'm okay with that. Everything doesn't have to go down to the next drill down if there's not that much detail. But we don't have to worry about global nav. It's all in a content management system. We're just testing the palindrome exercise.
It accepts numbers.
So what?
Well, and numbers aren't words, so.
So what are you going to do?
No, what are you going to do?
Who are you talking to?
The developer.
You're the tester.
I'm the tester.
Tell the developer?
Yes, I'm talking to the developer. It accepts
Okay,
numbers and
what are
says
you going to tell
121 is reversed is 121 and says that it's a palindrome, but it's technically numbers.
He says, the developer says, so you type something in and backwards is the same as it's forwards. What's the problem?
Numbers are not words.
You're going to have to get the product owner to agree with you because that doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay, I have one. I used a sentence case for the name Bob because I have no imagination. Capital B, lowercase o, and lowercase b. And it said, no, Bob, as I typed it, reserved is Bob, only it was lowercase b, lowercase o, capital B.
Okay. So you are saying that it's, and I'm accelerating a little bit just because our time, saying that it's not case sensitive.
Well, I'm saying perhaps it is case sensitive because it did not detect that this same palindrome in all lowercase was in fact a palindrome.
Let me test it and see if I understand you correctly.
I'm sorry, I probably don't explain it very well.
Palindrome. So you're saying
Capital B, lowercase o, lowercase b.
right. Okay, so it is saying that capitalization counts for your reversal.
Okay.
You think it shouldn't. So what are you going to do? Who are you going to talk to?
Product owner.
He says, yeah, for the first release, I mean, obviously, capital B-O-B is different than lowercase b-o, capital B. I'm not too worried about it. I don't think it needs to be fixed.
Although it offends my sensibilities, he's the guy paying the bills.
Okay, that's a good catch. Thank you.
Looks like spacing. So like if you have a sentence, Ava can see bees in a cave. It is the same backwards and forwards, but the spacing of it breaks words up differently.
And who are you going to take that problem to?
Product owner, maybe?
Product owner says, yeah, we talked about that. I think spacing counts. So if there's different spacing, I think it should it's really palindrome sentence, not palindrome word. Does that help? The problem really is palindrome sentence. So if the sentence is or isn't a palindrome based on spacing, that matters. Yep. Anything else? We good to go then? Can we ship it?
No.
What more would you need to know? How much time do you need to decide if we can ship it? Asked the product owner.
How much time?
Yeah. When can we know? How are you gonna when can we get this thing done?
What I would respond to that is that I'm going to take the next hour, run a set of tests, a variety of tests, and then I will have some information that will allow me to convey what I'm seeing. And then based on that, we can discuss what are issues and then what the turnaround time is for those issues to get an estimate.
Okay, I get what you're saying, but for purpose of this simulation, we're going to try to get this done by 12:50, and I can tell you whether the things that you found are fixed or not, and then I can simulate the retest, all with the magical power of the forces of nature. So let's try to get it done. What do you need to do? Go do it. Why are you talking to me? Typey type. Come on.
No, I think that I will objectively report my results to the product owner, and the ship or no ship onus is on him. It's not on me.
So the product owner says, look, man, I'm 25 years old. I've got 4 years of journalism experience, and I was hired into this role a month ago. We hired you because you're a professional tester with decades of experience. The requirements are clear. What's the problem? Like, tell me if I can ship this thing or not. At least make a recommendation. Can you do that? Not asking for much. You're far more qualified to do,
You're asking.
My plumber doesn't come back and tell me.
You are asking for more.
Sorry, you cut out there.
You are asking for more than I'm signed up to do. My job is to test your stuff and tell you, based on my testing, this is what I've found. Your name's on the label. You want to ship it? Fine. Microsoft did that for a heck of a long time, and people put up with the blue screen of death.
So the VP of IT walks by and he says, "Excuse me? Excuse me? No, I hired you. I'll tell you what your job is." And if he says he wants a ship or no ship recommendation, that seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Fair enough.
Can we agree on that? Do you like being employed here?
Employment's always good. Don't chip.
Oh, well, this thing needs to be out by 5 today. I don't see you even typing to figure out whether or not it should be out. Instead, you're wasting my time with this ridiculous argument.
Then I'll get back to my keyboard. I will have your results. And at 4 o'clock, you can make a decision on whether you want to make 5 o'clock or not. What my testing will not do is it will not improve the quality of either the requirements that the developer was given or the results I get from whatever they interpreted. The software will not magically heal itself in the next few hours.
I actually it can, because we've got the junior dev here. You have no idea. You have no idea the resources that I, as a vice president in this organization, have to improve the quality of the software through bug fixes in a limited time period. We will fix it if it needs to be fixed. Let's find out. Instead of, we've only got 20 minutes left in this simulation. Why are we having these philosophical arguments about, I'll tell you the nature of your job. You tell me if we can ship this software. How about that?
I have a question about scope.
Sure. What are you
Is
asking?
this product owner, I guess?
Yeah, it's good. Answer.
Let's see here. Is this English only for palindromes?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. So what do you mean by that?
Okay, so
Like,
I took an English word palindrome, put it in there, and it came back correct. So then I translated it to Arabic, put it in there, and then it said no, that it wasn't a palindrome.
well, like,
So
I'm sure that the word green is different in Spanish, and in Spanish it's not a palindrome. It's aqua, right, or something? Agua? Is that blue?
Verde, I think, is green.
Verde.
So the point being, I'm sure when you translate it, it's not a palindrome anymore. Yes, it should literally use what you type it in as.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question.
What about punctuation? I'm asking the product
I
owner.
mean, so if I mean, really, this doesn't have to be that smart. It's for third grade teachers. Is to say if the same thing backwards and forwards. So if you type in comma, comma, that's a palindrome. It's not a valid sentence, of course, but it is the same backwards and forwards.
Okay, so like for example, the interwebs tell us that "Madam, comma, I'm Adam" is a phrase palindrome, and this application tells us that it is not. So
yeah, that's a good point. But you would need an extra comma in there for it to be a palindrome according to our definition for version 1.
an extra.
I had a big
comma.
long argument with the dev before you were hired, and I gave in on that. So it's a great feature request. You want to write it up? We'll put it in version 2. We got to get this thing out the door. And as coach, those are really good observations, by the way.
How about just putting in a string of the same character? It's saying it's a palindrome reversed.
What's who are you asking?
So I'm a bit lost. Who all are available for
You have the
asking?
product
Owner, dev. Okay.
The dev and the VP of IT.
So the dev has all the requirements, right?
It's a junior dev. He wants to do bug fixes.
Okay, let me go to the product owner.
Okay, great. So you say, what if I type in A?
Exactly.
And he says, yeah, it's the same backwards and forwards, isn't it? Yeah, I guess that would be a palindrome.
Okay. Okay, so suppose, I mean, just jumping the gun, if the testing is done, we've tested a lot of things and I think we are done. Can we have some feedback from the product owner?
So what I've heard so far is that this reversed is reserved if you get it wrong, and we fix that typo. Typo that's the only bug that we fixed. That's the only bug we fixed. In the interest of getting this thing done on time, does anybody have any other tests that they would run but they don't have time to do? Or do you want to? Are you, Arvind, calling saying we're ready to go, ship it, and then let's do a brief retrospective, which we were going to do at 12:50.
What I was trying to say was within the team, have some sort of a quick feedback to avoid going in the wrong direction and finishing all the time we have on hand.
All right, now as coach, I did have a whole slide on this. That's a great question. That's a good idea. But this is not the kind of positive, helpful work environment where that thing is going to happen. So you try, and the product owner says, look, if you have questions, just bring them to me. I'll tell you what's going on. And the dev says, look, if you have bugs, just tell me what they are and I'll fix them. And the VP says, just get the thing out by 5. I don't care. And they walk away from you. Good try. As coach, good try. But this isn't that kind of environment. Somebody else I heard another voice.
Yeah, the where you enter the data, zeros and the letter O appear the same.
They do look the same, depending on your font, I think. Let me see here. It's lowercase o and 0, right? Well, what kind of browser are you on?
Chrome.
Because I think there is a small pixel difference. You could argue it's an accessibility problem. If someone, for instance, needs glasses and they aren't wearing them, they're not going to be able to tell the difference.
It's a bug.
So who are you taking the problem to?
The developer.
The developer says they type in 0, 0, 0, and the letter O, and backwards it's the letter O and 0, 0, 0. They're different things. They're going to get an error message. Too bad. I've got other work to do.
The representation of that data is incorrect, though, so the user can't make a determination as far as what they typed in, because it all represents.
Says it looks right on my screen. I can tell the difference. Like, what version of Chrome am I on? I'm on a Mac, and I'm on Chrome 86042. So they just need to upgrade to the latest version of Chrome. I mean, if they have customized fonts on their system, I can't do anything about that. I really think this is out of scope. Good try, by the way. I think that having the skills to push back and reframe are important skills for testers that are often overlooked and not appreciated. So what Jess did there is the reframe, the wait a minute, the what about this category of users? And if people can realize, oh, wait, that's 20% of our user base, and then change their behavior to do a bug fix, you can actually have a stickier product that sells more copies. You can add a lot of value really easily. But Yeah, he shuts you down. Nice try. Just in the interest of time, if you would have gone to the product owner, you could have gotten it on the backlog, and maybe we'd get it in the next release. So it's a good point.
So can
Anybody else?
something like, sorry, can something like that previous point on what browser version we are testing on, should it go in some document or on this page somewhere? Talking to a product owner, sorry.
Product owner says, I'm not an expert in testing. I mean, what? You got Chrome, you got Firefox, Safari. Some people use their phones, tablets. It should work, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're going to test it, right? I mean, you guys all have a portable, like you're a contractor, and I get that. So because you're a contractor, you're brought in, you're expected to use your own tools. That's the difference between a W-9 contractor and a W-2 under the law. So you brought your own laptops and devices, and you're testing all of it, right? I mean, it's supposed to work. Tell you what, if they're using a version of a browser that's more than 4 years old, we should just tell them to upgrade. That's fair.
Yep, thanks.
So we seem to have slowed down the momentum. So I'm going to throw in a couple of exercises, a couple of ideas that I'll screen share, ask you some questions. And then we'll say we are at a point where we cannot resolve things. I'll have a vote who wants to ship, who doesn't, and then we'll do a retrospective with the time remaining. Is that fair?
Yep.
Or do people really need more time to test?
No, good to go.
Okay, great. So I'm going to try to change my screen share to my browser. Why? Google Chrome. Here we go. So now I should see the palindrome exercise, right? Everybody see that?
Yes.
If I do this, TSET, we would think that would be a palindrome, right? Should be. Bunch of spaces. Do I need to bump the font up for you? I can bump the font up for you.
Well,
No,
based on,
I was thinking if the spaces are an even number of spaces, yes.
And even if they're odd, then it's just going to have the one in the middle be a space. We should be okay either way. But let's try it.
I have noodles.
Sorry?
Are you?
So
sorry about that.
sounds like someone's got a small child in the background. It's fine. Mute if you can. These things happen. I thought my daughter is 6. I thought about having her here today, but she's out. I think the experience would be better for you without the 6-year-old. Maybe it'd be more realistic. I don't know. But so this is the note. It gets that it's a palindrome, but it concatenates the characters. Does anybody have any idea why that happened? Anybody? I'll give you a hint. Check this out. It injected a couple of, I don't know if you can see it, but it added some lines and hard spaces into the web.
I was playing around with the script, and I was actually able to get it to display not actually on the page, but in the console. or in the elements.
Right. And why is this working? What is this doing? James, do you have any idea?
Looks like it's probably taking the literal HTML code in this particular case and trying to format it.
Yep. Whatever you type in there, it literally injects into the page, into the document object model. So if you add HTML in there, it will insert it right in there. My favorite example of this, if it works, is I put an image tag in. Oops. I literally searched for an image that was a bug in Google. Put it in. Let's see if I can get that to run. Not quite. What did I do wrong here? Image source equals blah, 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 blah. Let's get rid of the slash. Slash image. Put some extra text in there just so you can see it. Yep. So it actually used that as an image tag in the application itself. Does anyone know what the fix for this is?
You need to HTML encode the greater and less than symbols.
Yeah, we basically need to either strip out the symbols or convert them. So for instance, ampersand NBSP is the escaped version of space. If I do that, it'll project as spaces. So if we typed in 5 spaces, we could convert that to 5 NBSPs and it would present correctly. So we could either escape the characters, we could strip them out, or you might be able to not let them be typed in the first place. So you might be able to restrict the page to only straight characters. Maybe that's how you get rid of your comma and your semicolon problem. You just don't let them type in commas or semicolons. But that's a conversation to be had with the product owner. For purposes of this discussion, let's say that that's what happened. You talked to the PO and they said, yeah, get rid of all the weird commas and brackets and stuff. And it's now fixed. So the forces of nature, you have a new build and you have a new build that has fixed all those problems. By the way, I hope in that example, we can see that, and I only gave you like 20 minutes, this is okay, but a more technical tester that understands HTML is going to be able to find issues, which could be security issues that a more junior person might not. So there's an example of being able to not only have a nearby skill, which is web design, but being able to actually apply that back into testing, which is not trivial. So when I do this with professional web designers, only a small percentage of them who have the skill are able to reapply it and figure out, oh, that's why that went wrong. So have there been any bugs, Jess, or anyone else in the chat that haven't been mentioned yet?
Nope.
I know you guys are tight for time, but shouldn't this be lowercase? Shouldn't that be lowercase?
You know, one thing that I kind of observe a little bit is that the frustration that we as testers experienced as a result of having the ship it, that's not an issue, don't worry about it, push back on us, I think definitely has impeded like our ability to continue to find productive issues.
Right. There's definitely sort of well, if I've seen it before with really motivated smart people in a group that were trying to impress each other. eventually someone will say, well, if you're just going to tell me we'll fix it later, don't worry about it, we're done. If every issue I find you're not going to fix, then we're done. And I think that's actually a valid response at some point, but I don't think we're there yet. Wait, this worked? Maybe it's the spaces. I put spaces in here. If I take the spaces out, what are we going to see? There's a great tool called counter string. It's a Perl clip. Perl clip. If you Google for that, there's a feature called counter string that can generate this kind of test data for you, but it actually counts. It actually has numbers and spaces and things so that you can tell where the cutoff is. So that's kind of weird, right? There's what? Can I grow this page? Yeah, is that right? That seems not right. At the very least, I should have a scroll bar down here, right? So, quick attack, standard. I'm just going to throw totally incorrect data at it and see it blow up. I think Jesh has got a good observation there that as soon as you started to say commas, numbers, special characters, and I kept saying, I don't care, you gave up. I don't think anybody tried Unicode, so we haven't seen Japanese, Hebrew, Greek. But if anyone did, it wouldn't have worked, and I would have said, I don't care, ship it anyway. So given what I have just said at 12:50, how many people do we have on the call?
Yeah, I just found a spelling mistake in your response.
What's that? What's that?
So I was able to put in doing script reversed using HTML and partial HTML encoding and partial not. And then so the word instead of reversed, it's reserved.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Technically, it is, but technically it is reversed.
Yeah, I think Jess caught that one earlier.
Okay.
The reverse reserved. I think Jess caught that one earlier. So we've only got one. What's that? 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people on the call. So who's ready? And you can just go ahead and leave a comment in the chat. Who says at this point with this product owner, with what we know, I would say go ahead. I would recommend you go ahead and put it out there. Or not. If you could, let's do a vote. And if your answer is no, what more do you need to know to put it out there?
The requirements. Did I say that?
The requirements, I guess it's one. Okay, this is one field with one button that has one output. So the cyclomatic complexity of this entire function, calculable, is 1. It's a string reverse and an if statement. I think that's 2. So yeah, it's an if statement. So you have, as well, sadly, as coach, I would argue that you have about as much requirements as you would get for a good application that was that complex at this point.
So like saying that the requirements that you're sharing with me are very minimal explicit requirements. The implicit requirements that I understand related to a palindrome in researching some of that stuff on the internet, this application is violating a lot of those like conventions. So that's what I would express to a product owner related to that is this may meet some technical requirement or two that someone has defined, but it's not meeting common expectations that users would have.
So I'm working on a follow-up talk to this that is another simulation that is literally that conversation. So here's my idea. This is Matt talking now. A lot of people do not have the communication skills or the mental model to be able to communicate the questions you're asking. So as a tester, I would argue it is our job to figure out, it's called commander's intent is the military term. We figure out what they would do if they would have the time to go through all of these issues themselves. And then you can represent that and you can say, these are the implicit requirements as I understand them. Are they correct? And they look at them all and they say, yeah, that's right. And then you say, well, if those are the implicit requirements, my recommendation would be to ship it. These are the known risks. If you agree, then you are taking on the known risks.
Right.
And then you kind of pass off the responsibility, which is what Scott was trying to do earlier, and I didn't let him. And he's perfectly right, but I warned you guys, this is not going to be easy. So we have Arvin says yes, Jess says no. Anybody else? I just haven't given you the time to go through that exercise, and it's fair to say we could, but not today. Jamie
I'd say no because
says no.
We don't have certain requirements that need to be had that you could not ship without. In fact, like what browsers are supported. Hey, what if can I use IE6 and do this? And then if so, is that some sort of security vulnerability? Because IE6 is garbage. Things like that you need to know to be able to test something properly. Because like I looked at it in Chrome so far. I haven't looked at it in other browsers. So
right. Yes. And the way we would do that in this simulation, and I'm still working on how to explain it over Zoom, this is the second time we've done it, is you would say, I would propose to do these things. And I assume they work similar to Chrome did for me, right? And then as the force of nature, I would say, sure. And you have that in your test lab and you tested it. But that's another conversation that's a back and forth that is the, I don't know, so this is what I'm going to do. Does that work for you? Oh, it does, good. It's kind of a boundaries exercise. And this extra simulation, we can almost go anywhere you want to go with it. If you want to fight the VP, you can do that. If you want to work with the product owner, you can. If you just want to find bugs, you can do that. So I'm going to show you one more thing before I get going. And let me ask you this. Everybody have the application up? You're looking at the application?
Yep.
What's anagram do? Like,
rearranges the letters or whatever the word is to different words. Yeah.
Does it work?
Not very well, but I didn't mention anything about it because you specifically said palindrome stuff. And so I just counted that was something we needed to look at. However, I still made mental notes of it.
So when Arvin said, yes, it's ready to go, that piece of functionality, which is not production ready, was accidentally deployed with it. So there's a whole exercise. Some people, and you can bump on so many different things. You can say, what about this? What about that? Wait a minute. I don't know. Nobody talked about load or performance. Nobody talked about, a couple of people implied, James implied, like, I don't really have time to do security, but there might be some stuff there. But nobody bumped on the anagram. And that's, so if you had, I'd have taken you down another bunny trail where I try to deflect and say, don't worry about that. That's not, but yeah, I'm worried about it. What do you mean? You've got this piece of software that's on the same page. It's not defined. I want to see a page that's clean. And I would have given you a hard time about it. Most people give up, frankly. And that's another case where seeing risk and communicating that risk and having some perseverance about it can lead to materially different outcomes. So there's a whole bunch of little problems in this software, but we only had about 40 minutes. So, and now we got to get going. So hope you enjoyed this brief lunch break. I can guarantee it was at least worth the price of admission. Any questions for me before we say goodbye? Thank you all for playing. Like, I was rough on Scott. I was rough on him, and that was invited. That was that's not Matt. No. But I hope we can agree that's a pretty realistic, that happens.
Oh, you are certainly right. That happens. It happens far more frequent than not. You have a product owner who, because they had a grand idea, has made this large jump to think they're also technical enough to make their grand idea show up on the unsuspecting public.
And if we had gone into it, I would have eventually said, look, it's an application for third grade teachers. We contracted with the Michigan State Teachers Union to do it. We're going to get $2 million if it goes out today at 5 p.m. and 1.5 million if it's a day late. Let's put it out there and fix it tomorrow. So if you understand the business drivers, you can make better recommendations. And as we move toward DevOps, I don't know that we always have time to give it to someone else to let them think about it and make this grand decision for all this work in progress. We're just talking about one little feature, and if it's busted, we'll roll it back. So the system forces you're under can be very different. Okay.
All right. Well, I want to tell Matt, thanks for being with us here today. I know some people may have to move on to 1 o'clock meetings or other things, but thanks a lot, Matt. This is very interesting, and it was a great opportunity for me to get my blood to boil a little bit. So thank you.
I feel like we just scratched the surface. I'm going to go back and make this an hour and a half, and I'm going to have more structure. The big difference is the number of people in the room, because if you get 30, 40 people in the room, its ideas are flying, and it's, you know, with the 9 of us, it was more personal, but a little less energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Also, there's something not quite right with your webpage. I haven't pinpointed it down yet, but you have 3 invalid links, and I'm trying to figure out where they're at. They're somewhere in the source.
You mean like developer tools told you that?
An extension that I have. I have an
Cool.
extension called Link Checker, and it's reporting 3 bad links.
So I'm looking into this thing. I just sent it to somebody else. It's called buymeacoffee.com or something. You can give them like $3. And this guy just gave me really good advice on Twitter, so I sent him a coffee. If you figure it out and send it to me, I will send you a coffee, James. Although, welcome to Michigan. You can't dine in. You have to get it to go.
Right? Yeah, I'll see if I can figure it out.
All right. Sounds good. I appreciate everybody showing up today. Thank you. And, have a great Thanksgiving.
Let's try to keep in touch more often. COVID is so isolating. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Hey,
thanks for being with us
I
here.
really appreciate talking with big people too. of like mind. The last couple of projects, it's been a lot more training on the easy stuff. Thanks, Matt. Really appreciate it. Yes, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Scott.
All right, we'll see you.
Hey, and everybody else, y'all take care.
Guys, have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.